I'll never forget walking in my neighborhood and seeing this store. Modell's was one of those stores people could get sports apparel whether they were a sports fan or not. At its peak, it had over 150 stores across the East Coast and was doing close to $1 billion in annual sales. But increased pressure from the athletic market and online space caused the company to restructure their business model. So how did one of the most famous sporting goods chains end up filing for bankruptcy? Well, here's how. I saw parking on my way here. Today's video will be about Modell's. For the sake of the video, I'm still gonna try to find parking in under 10 minutes. Well, let's see. Modell's began when this Hungarian immigrant decided to broaden his customer base from sailors to people involved in the military. With him realizing his clientele, he opened his own store in Lower Manhattan and named it Modell's. At a time when America was dealing with a lot of conflict, surplus retail became a trend. Oh, there's parking right here. Oh shoot, I could just park here. Oh, that does it for the parking today, doesn't it? Even after the war, the store still continued to focus on that. Stocking gear and having a surplus of equipment at cut rate prices attracted working class people. This made Modell's a place where people could get value. In the early 20th century, the founder passed it on to his son, Henry, and he kept the core model of providing surplus equipment and value to customers. This became especially convenient during the Great Depression. By positioning themselves as a store that can offer good quality at a great price, consumers who were low on cash found the store convenient. And even after World War II, when finding goods became scarce, Henry and the company started becoming inventive, reusing clothes for other use cases, like protective coverings onto raincoats or turning blankets into snowsuits. For the first half of the 1900s, Modell's was primarily known as being a surplus chain, not really one that offered sporting goods. As Americans' participation in sports grew, Modell's decided to expand tier inventory by involving sports apparel. From the 50s to the 80s, Modell's experimented with what growth could look like by launching Shopper's World. The stores had everyday essentials on clothing, luggage, and household basics. This was an era of rising discount stores, and Modell's wanted a piece of the pie. During this time, Henry did something smart, which was acquire dying chains to put them further into athletic retail. Although the Shopper's World model worked, it wasn't really sustainable. By the mid-1980s, 20 stores was generating a total of $50 million. Their margins were getting tight, and they needed another strategic move for the business. And to be honest, rivals in the discount space was clearly more dominant. Modell's was always the underdog, and people knew that. By 1988, they sold stores off to Home Depot, converted all the other stores to sporting goods, and committed entirely to being a sporting goods chain. Through the early 90s, the surplus layout of their stores became outdated. Staying true to being a store that offered sporting goods, they rebuilt the stores from the ground up, directing their store traffic around footwear, team gear, and known brands. And they carved out an edge by not only offering discounted shoes, but also aggressively matching prices. A $2.5 million purchase of Herman Sporting Goods propelled the company to having over 60 stores by '96. By the late 90s, the company peaked to 100 plus stores, reaching annual sales of $200 million. Their iconic Gotta Go to Moe's jingle made them a regional powerhouse. Building off of momentum from this, they started off the 2000s opening a Manhattan flagship and doubling down on dense Northeast markets. Being confident in their formula, they kept on advertising and opening physical stores. But this is where things started to get tricky for them. Expanding away from their regional fan base and into Florida, they experimented new formats in 11 different locations. But they instantly found competition as brands started moving to direct-to-consumer. And during the Great '08 recession, while they might have closed underperformers, sales were stagnant, causing non-traditional retail brands to pass them by. Their underinvestment in the retail space started to become noticeable in 2015 when Nike decided to restrict wholesale and continue doing direct-to-consumer. Using the collapse of Sports Authority as a cautionary tale, Modell started to restructure assets in the company since they didn't want to endure the same fate. But they ended up going that same way too. To calm everyone down who was worried about the future of the sporting goods industry, the CEO went on air saying that Modell's was tied to their Northeast community and not buried in private equity. Little did we know they too hired a restructuring firm to put a band-aid on their short-term problems, and ignoring the biggest one, which was e-commerce. The tipping point finally came in 2019 when news came out that Modell's was in financial trouble. Things like being unable to pay their suppliers and sales dropping that holiday season made people lose confidence in Modell's. After announcing the closure of 24 stores in February of 2020, the CEO went on air to crowdsource for the company. Although the plea saved some stores, due to no major investments, they were still underwater. And 3 weeks later, Modell's filed for Chapter 11, liquidating all their assets. There's two things I want to point out. The reason we see Dick stores everywhere and not Modell's is literally due to an allocation of funds. While most focused on advertising and trying to expand physically, the leadership at Dick's realized early on that online wasn't going away and aggressively invested into it. They realized that omni-channel shoppers spend 4 times what a single shopper does. Now, my second point is that Modell's was one of these brands that built a loyalty with the customers. They had a following, and I think what they didn't take into consideration was how to harness that cult following and leverage it to where shoppers could have seen it as this staple in the sports industry. Last year, Dick's posted $13 billion in revenue. It's just funny how reading the room can lead to a downward spiral. One interesting fact while doing research for this video is how the CEO went undercover on an episode of Undercover Boss to find flaws in the company. After that, he took some action into improving what the culture should look like in the company. He raised pay, promoted standout associates, and even helped an employee who was homeless, all giving them a $250,000 check. That's a lot of money for a Modell's employee. It's the idea of reward and loyalty that they should have banked on. Modell's story echoes similar to the Payless one in that they weren't able to adapt. I'll never forget Modell's because I remember my brother used to take me there to get some gear if I had like soccer practice or basketball, you know? And it was a great company, but like they just wasn't able to just keep up with the times. Interesting story, you know? Comment below and let me know what you think happened to Modell's. All right, later.